So welcome back to our podcast, A Couple of Silmarils, where we are reading through the Silmarillion together as a couple. And we're kind of just breaking down different chapters. Last week we did chapters 3, 4, and 5. And it was just a lot about the elves and their travel to Valinor. And so this week we're going to go through chapter 6, 7, and 8. And this gets a little bit more into the Noldorian elves, into Feanor, and also Melkor is coming back into the story. He's back. But before we did that, I thought it would be helpful as we are slowly getting through this book to kind of recap where we at in Middle Earth or in Arda right now. Okay, so real quick, I just had a few, I'm just going to go through the real quickly what's happened so far. This will be a very, very short summary because I'm not going to get all of it in it. So the Iluvatar sends the Valar to Arda to bring to life the songs that they were singing. They start creating in Arda, and it's really hard because Melkor starts destroying. And so eventually Arda is finished. Melkor brings on his first attack, and he destroys the 2 lamps in Middle Earth and essentially destroys a lot of Middle Earth. So the Valar were living in Middle Earth in peace. Melkor comes and destroys them. So they flee to Aman. They rebuild there. They have the 2 trees of light that they rebuild there. And then time starts as the trees light at different times of the day. And then the children of Iluvatar are born in Middle Earth. Both the Valar and Melkor are aware of this, and they find them, and both sides are influencing the children of Iluvatar. The Valar end up deciding that they do not need to now catch Melkor because of his influence, his evil influence on the elves. And so they do capture him, and they put him into imprisonment for 3 ages. That's an important thing to remember in this episode. And then they also convince the elves to come to Valinor and to make that journey. And that's what we talked about last week, where they journey to Valinor. Many elves are left along the way because they wanted to, not because people are leaving them. And then that brings us to where we are now, which is the elves are in Valinor. It's kind of a time of peace and happiness, and
call it the noontime, I think.
And so the remaining elves in Valinor are living in a time of peace, and that brings us to chapter 6. Chapter 6. Well, I was going to pause there and see. Was that a good overview? Did I need to add anything?
I think no. I think that gets us to where we're at. The Valar did chain up Melkor and put him in jail
for 3 ages.
Halls of Mandas for 3 ages. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we start in this chapter. It's called Of Feanor and the Unchaining of Melkor, unfortunately. So the days of the Eldar, like we said, they're quite peaceful. And this chapter begins in the birth of Feanor. Feanor is Finwë's son. Finwë is the leader of the Noldorian elves. So it's his first son. He's born to him and his wife, Miriel. Right after his birth, Miriel says that she's given all her strength to Feanor, and she cannot bear him any more children. This really grieves Finwë because he wanted to fill Aman with a lot of his children. So Finwë goes to Manwë for advice, and Manwë sends Miriel to Urmo in Lorien, and asks Urmo to care for her. However, when she falls asleep, her spirit leaves Aman. So her body is still there. The maidens of Este were tending to her body, but she never returns. Her soul never returns. So essentially she passes away. And yeah, did you have any?
I was wondering, is this like the first maybe death that they've experienced? Because I mean, they've seen Melkor has taken people from them, like kidnapped them and things like that. But I don't know if they've actually seen a death, or maybe the first non-combat death that's happened. But it's seems like a very painful labor. And as we get to know Feanor more, see that she gave a lot to Feanor, and he is a very special, unique individual. And I think Tolkien saying even the labor for this person was quite quite taxing.
Yeah.
And just goes into Feanor's personality. But it is very interesting that she essentially dies from childbirth.
Yeah, I didn't think about that of kind of being the first death that is mentioned because elves don't die. So after her death, this, like Ethan said, Finwë is very grieved by this. He puts all of his love and attention into Feanor, maybe to Feanor's downfall. So Feanor, he becomes I thought this was interesting. He became the most subtle in mind and the most skilled in hand. What did you think they meant by subtle in mind?
I guess I was clever. Is probably what came to mind when it was a very very interesting way to say it.
Yeah, because subtle to me makes me think he's stupid, like he has a subtle mind. I don't know. But I did look it up, and someone said that he was very skilled, very intelligent, but maybe not so great at interacting with other elves. So not as good of like having friendships and relationships, but very skilled. He worked with Rumo in Tirion he helped develop the first language. He was really good at working with gems. He ends up marrying Nerdanel. I think Nerdanel sounds better.
Yeah, it is one of the lesser attractive names in Tolkien's universe.
Yeah,
so
we
far.
decided we did not like her name. So he marries Nerdanel. She actually has a pretty strong personality and is at the beginning of their marriage able to help rein him in a little bit. Nerdanel's father is a smith and very much loved by Aule. And so his name is Matan, and Matan teaches Feanor a lot about smith work as well. So Feanor is becoming very, very skilled. It does mention that Feanor he desires to understand minds rather than to actually know them. I think that goes into his subtle mind and skilled hands. This really grieved Nerdanel. She did bear him 7 sons, but they do mention that eventually they become estranged. So we don't know what that looks like and when that happens, but that is also mentioned.
Yeah, she. One of the things they said about Nerdanel is that she wanted to understand minds rather than master them. I thought that was a very interesting a good way for her. She's probably a good wife for Feanor in that sense. She's also referred to as Nerdanel the Wise at one point too. So I think they do become estranged. I think Feanor doesn't take a whole lot of counsel, but that does say later that of the very little people Feanor would take counsel from, Nerdanel was one of them, at least at one time.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like the one person that he at one point would listen to was Nerdanel.
And real quick on Feanor, I think that one of the things they say on his birth is that he grew swiftly, and it seemed like there was like a secret fire in him. So that just made me think more of Muriel's death, in having him. That there's something special in him, and she was just exhausted and really taken down after that, after burying him.
So next, Finwë does end up marrying Indis. She is one part of the Vanyar. They call her a Vanya, as a female Vanyar elf. And Feanor was not happy with this, probably because he was an only child for so long, and Finwë was able to give all of his love to Feanor. So he was not thrilled. They ended up having 2 sons, him and Finwë and Indis. So Feanor has 2 stepbrothers. Their names are Fingolfin and Finarfin. Because of this, he kept himself busy in Amand, discovering different lands, learning as much as he could in his different crafts. It was interesting in this part of the book, they mentioned that many elves blamed Finwë for the later deeds of Feanor because they said if he could have just dealt with his loss instead of remarrying, that maybe Feanor would not have acted in the way he does eventually in this book. But I don't know. I don't agree with that. I feel like Feanor should be responsible for his own actions. So Feanor does end up bringing great grief to the Noldorians. But the children of Indis, it mentions, were a great gift to the elves. And if they had not lived, the history of the Eldar would have been diminished. So this chapter kind of gives you a little bit of what might be happening. We don't know what the full extent of Feanor's grief upon the elves is yet, but we'll get into it more in the book, but it's interesting that Tolkien kind of starts giving you little, like, the Feanor's reign is not going to end well, but we don't know how.
Yeah. One of the interesting things to note when they were said that first comment on maybe if Finwë hadn't done that, things would have gone better with Feanor. It's actually this chapter is kind of showing this is I think they call it the noontide of Valinor. No, I said noontime. Noontide of Valinor.
Noontide?
Tide of Valinor. This is just, everything is fantastic. Life is perfect right now. I bet this is about as much perfection as you can have. So this introduction is the imperfection happening in the world of Aman, in the land of Valinor. So you have Muriel dying. That's a big thing of imperfection. And then it does mention that Finwë is the only person in the Blessed Realm deprived of joy. And so he's going through emotions he maybe has never experienced before. Or he's very old too, so maybe he has. I mean, he did do the whole crossing of Middle Earth to come to Valinor. He was the leader of the Noldor. He still is during that crossing. But then also that note there of, like, maybe if he hadn't done this, things would have gone better, is also, it shows people, like, having a different viewpoint of how to raise a family, which is also something that probably in the perfect realm you didn't have. It's very interesting to note that people are starting to have those thoughts about, and pointing fingers, like maybe you should have done that,
starting blaming.
Yeah. So I have a few more of those themes as we get more through, just of how the perfect world is now decaying.
Yeah, so that's how the chapter begins, kind of a little bit more into Feanor, and then it's transitions to Melkor. So in this chapter, Melkor actually completes his 3 ages of captivity. And so since this was the timeline that the Valar gave him to be in captivity, he goes before the Valar again to kind of plead his case and ask to be freed.
Yeah, and on that, an age, I looked that up. An age does not refer to a fixed length of time, but is an era defined by a major historical event or turning point. So that would be when they say 3 ages. It's not like 3,000 years, not necessarily.
So confusing.
But when you live to be forever, time is a bit confusing as a Valar.
That would kind of make sense. So you'd be like, the first age was creating, the second age was the elves coming. You know, that would help if you don't keep track of years, keeping track of something that happened. That like a big battle, I'm sure they did as battles came to being, you know, or something. That would help. That's interesting.
Well, and I think they're talking about the Middle Earth, like the second they defeat Sauron in the first time, like I think in the Fellowship of the Ring, they pan over to Sauron, and Isildur kills him or takes off his ring anyway. They immediately, that's the end of the second age, I think, or something like this. So they said that major event immediately changed the age of the Earth. It changed the age time. So anyway, so his 3-age sentence is now complete.
Yeah, so it's complete. He goes before the Valar to kind of plead his case. In his mind, Tolkien makes it very clear that he has not changed. He's still evil. He really is envious of the Valar. He's envious that they have the children of Iluvatar. He lusts after the gems that the children have been creating or have found. And so he's still very evil, but he doesn't want the Valar to know this. So he convinces them that he's not, which I do not understand how he was able to do this. He must be a man of great convincing. He vowed to Manwë that if he was set free, that he would be able, he would work on healing the hurts that he caused to Middle Earth, and that he would, He would aid the Valar in their works and in the healing of many hurts that he had done to the world. So Manwë granted him pardon and told him that he would be set free, but he cannot leave the sight of the Valar.
So he's under about a house arrest almost, it seems like.
But after a while, he he really is, he's very cunning, and he's able to gain the trust of the Eldar and of the Valar, and they start letting him roam around as he pleases. It does mention that Ulmo and Tulkas, those Valar of great passion, they were not deceived. They did not believe he had changed. But Manwë did, because they say that Manwë was a Valar who had never known evil, so he couldn't understand how evil Melkor could be. So I thought that was an interesting point.
Yeah, I really like that too. The exact quote I had on that was, Manwë was fooled by Melkor because he thought Melkor was cured of evil, but Manwë was free from evil and could not comprehend it. So he couldn't see through it. And so Melkor does go around, and I think he's happy to be out. He's somewhat curious about these things, so I think he's very happy to be as helpful as possible right now. I don't know if he's completely planned out in his mind exactly what he wants to do, evil-wise, to overthrow the Valar. But right now he's just very good. Everyone loves Melkor. He's just so happy. But Tulkas and Ulmo do not. But another quote we had here that I thought was very interesting, was very cool. He said, Tulkas and Ulmo, and those are two of the other Valar. Ulmo is the Valar of the sea. Tulkas is more of the fighting Valar, who wrestled Melkor and chained him the first time. They obeyed Manwë. For those who defend authority against rebellion must not themselves rebel.
Yeah, I remember that quote now. I really like that, of just their respect for Manwë, and still listening to him and letting him lead and not trying to take over or be rebellious.
Another thing I noticed here, or I was getting out of this, was that, especially the quote about Manwë was free from evil, could not comprehend it, shows that I think Tolkien is getting at he has no redemption arc in the mind from Melkor. He believes objective evil. Here, I believe, is what I was seeing out of some of this. So.
Yeah, so this chapter kind of ends by saying that Melkor really hates the Eldar. He kind of blames them for his downfall. And so because of this, he wants to gain their trust as much as possible so he can start using his deceitfulness to kind of spread lies, to start new feelings for the elves, jealousy, blame, pride, all of those things. And so the Valinor elves were the most suspicious of him, and they just remained in the trees, is what the book said. And so they weren't as influenced by him. And then the Teleri, Melkor thought they were too weak. So he really focused in on the Noldor elves, which is kind of why we're getting into Feanor and Finwë and all of those things. So yeah, that's how the chapter ends. Ethan, did you have any more on that chapter?
Just a real quick one to say on the Eldar. Just as a reminder, the Eldar are the elves that left Middle Earth. They left Cuivennen. They started the journey from Cuivennen, led by Cuivennen, led by Ulmo, to go to Valinor.
They're the elves that made it all the way there.
And so when it says Melkor really hates the Eldar, he hates the Eldar because he's like, these elves are the reason the Valar actually took action and went to fight me in the first place and overthrow me the first time and chain me up. So the Eldar don't really know, of course, especially at this point, don't know that he hates them, but he really hates them because he sees them as a reason the Valar didn't just stay in their happy little heaven.
Yeah.
But they came over and attacked him.
Yeah, so that's chapter 6, and that kind of leads us right into chapter 7. It's a little bit more about Feanor and Melkor bringing in his deceitfulness. So chapter 7 is called Of the Silmarils and the Unrest of the Noldor. So I wanted to just read this quote as we get right into the chapter because it explains the creation of the Silmarils really well. So I'm just going to read it. This is from the book. For Feanor, being come to his full might, was filled with a new thought, or it may be that some shadow of foreknowledge came to him of the doom that drew near. And he pondered how the light of the trees, the glory of the blessed realm, might be preserved imperishable. Then he began a long and secret labor, and he summoned all his lore, and all his power, and his subtle skill, and at the end of all, he made the Silmarils.
They're here. Silmarils are here.
Yeah, so Feanor is the one who makes the Silmarils. It makes sense because he is very skilled in many different ways. The Silmarils were in the form of 3 great gems. It is unknown what, I think essentially they were saying is unknown, like what metal they were made out of, but nothing in Arda could break them. We do know that the inner fire of the Silmarils was from the trees of light, so they do hold that that light from Amon. And Varda, she was it Varda? Yeah, Varda hallowed them, and so the Silmarils could not be destroyed by any living thing. So I thought that was interesting. The Silmarils received light, and they also gave light back. Was there anything else you wanted to add on there?
On that part, they said they were like they were living in the fact that they would receive light and they would reflect back more than they received. Like there was some sort of living essence in them, and it's also that the crystals that Feanor made were, and once again, I don't know all that he went into making them, but the crystal part of it that was made, that was basically the body, and the light was the soul, was the analogy there. And those allowed the light to be preserved. So I think definitely to begin with, the Valar are very impressed by this, and they like the fact that this light can be preserved and imperishable. At least they don't mind that aspect of it.
Yeah, the Valar love them. The elves love them. They're filled with wonder and delight of the work of Feanor. Like I said, Varda hallowed them, so they're just they're very loved gems. And Melkor sees this and once again lusts after them, and he wants to create distrust between the Noldor elves and the Valar, and kind of doing this so that he can gain Feanor's trust and essentially somehow get the Silmarils from him, I feel like is his main point. So he starts putting in just different ways for the Noldor to stop trusting the Valar. The big one was that he reveals to them the coming of men, and he says that the Valar are going to give the men their inheritance because of different reasons. And
I think he says that the Valar actually are going to choose men over you when they come, because the men are going to be more easy to corrupt than you guys, because they don't live as long. They're going to be more easy to influence, is what Melkor said. A side note by Tolkien, Melkor didn't know a whole lot about men. They made like he basically said he was distracted while they were being in the tunes while they were being created, because he was too busy trying to do his own thing, that he kind of missed a lot of the book that Iluvatar was making. I thought that was a little humorous there. That Melkor, like, oh shoot, I wish I had paid attention more in class on them.
Yeah, so this worked. It started poisoning the peace in Noldor, and it does say that Feanor was the most eager for freedom from the Valar. He kind of wanted to have the most independence. And so when Melkor saw that his lies were working, he decided to teach the Noldor how to make spears and things for war. So spears, swords, shields, and Feanor even he made a secret forge, and he started forging his own swords and shields for him and his sons. Melkor didn't even know about this forge. So the Noldor are starting to already, I mean, he's starting to put into their head war, which has never happened except between the Valar and Melkor. But, you know, the elves have never struck down another elf or anything like that. So,
and just going back to what we talked about the last chapter in terms of like the noontide of Valinor, also called the Days of Bliss. This time was coming to an end with Miriel's death. It seems like that was the big part of imperfection entering the world. And then you just start having other types of instincts come into play too. You have loneliness, and then you have favoritism from Finwë. All these things start coming into play. And here, Melkor, they just said Melkor lusted after the Silmarils. So Melkor, we already know he's a bad figure, but the lust for those Silmarils. And one of the interesting quotes by Tolkien here, he's like, "But he that sows lies in the end shall not lack of a harvest." Like, so That's what he said of Melkor, who was sowing lies. So we have lying coming up now as one of the. And now the perfection is over. He's teaching the elves a little bit of gossip as well. Like, did you know Melkor said this about the Vala? Did you know this? And making people who are very contented in a perfect world, just asking them questions to make them feel discontent for his own gain. So he's really playing on these themes that have never been in Valinor yet. And the Quendi, the elves, are, particularly in Noldor, are very susceptible to these things. And Melkor he plays the long game. We really have no idea how long this goes on. But he starts just throwing little pebbles. What about this? What about this? And just sowing discontent into people's life. And in the end, we just see that just makes life go down even more and more and more.
Yeah, I found it interesting too that he doesn't. Melkor's so smart. He does not go straight to Feanor or Fenway. He starts by. The book says he starts by finding people that will listen. So he would find the most vulnerable, or people that were easiest to corrupt, and those people would talk to other people that would talk to other people. So I just found that very interesting. He knew exactly where to go. So all this unrest really troubles Fenway, and Fenway decides to have a council with all of his lords. Fingolfin gets there first, and he kind of just tells Fenway he needs to control Feanor, and it said restrain the pride of Feanor. So Feanor, though, he arrives and he sees Fingolfin talking to Fenway. He believes that Fingolfin is betraying him, and he gets really upset, and he draws his sword at Fingolfin, and he tells Fingolfin to leave and take his due place, essentially saying, I am the oldest son, and I am the heir to the leader of the Noldor elves. And so essentially he has threatened to kill Fingolfin. So this is the first threat that the elves, a threat to kill that has ever happened along the elves. And many of the elves heard this. And so now the Valar, this is kind of when the Valar become aware that there's just so much distrust and unrest with the Noldor elves.
Yeah, the Valinor, I think the Valar they're aware that the peace of Valinor was poisoned. I think this might be the first sword that was ever drawn on somebody. They made some weapons, and they had they put their house crest on them and things like that. They made things kind of for show at first, but this is a really big deal, a big change in Valinor, where someone has threatened to kill somebody.
Well, even Feanor walking into that council, I didn't describe this well, but he walks in. I mean, the sword is at his hip, so that doesn't happen. No one's walking around with swords in Valinor, and so just him coming in with the sword on his hip is a clear sign of there's something going on here. And then he draws it, so it makes it worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like we said, the Valar are now aware of this unrest happening with the Noldor elves. And so, it's pretty clear that it's Feanor that's at the bottom of it. So they decide to bring this is the Valar. They want to bring Feanor before them and kind of just see what's happening. And as they start talking to Feanor, it kind of comes out, they realize.
Well, they questioned him. They put him in the Ring of Doom, which is the same place they put Melkor. They sentenced Melkor.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
They call Feanor to the Ring of Doom, and this is because Feanor is the one that openly threatened to kill someone. So they see him as
he is in trouble.
He is, he's in trouble. Yeah. So they call him before the Ring of Doom. He is sitting before all the Valar in their seats of judgment, and he's being questioned. And then
so he is being questioned, and in the end, the root of this unrest was made bare. That this was Melkor. Melkor was the one who was sowing these seeds of unrest. And so immediately Tulkas gets up and leaves the council, and he's like, I've got to go find Melkor, which was good. And they, even though they realized that Melkor was he was at the bottom of all of this, Feanor was still not held guiltless because he had broken the peace in Valinor, and he was made to leave Tirion for 12 years.
He was banished and left Tirion, which is the main city that the Noldor had set up there on the hill of Tuna, in Valinor. So first punishment really administered to one of the Quendi there.
Yeah, because at the beginning of this book, they mentioned that the Valar are not. They aren't their. Like, what was the word for it? They're more their. What I'm trying to say. What am I trying to say?
Well, they said they're not their masters. So they more have not a pure relationship is incorrect.
More advisors is what they're trying to be. Is what the Valar would like to be, unless things like this happen. So it's interesting that like it got so bad that they felt like they needed to discipline someone. And so they do mention that Fingolfin, he says a few words to Feanor in terms of like forgiveness, and Feanor is silent and just leaves. And so he is banished. He goes with his 7 sons. They make a stronghold and a treasury with all the gems. He does bring the Silmaril with him. And eventually Finwë comes along with Feanor. So because Finwë is with Feanor in banishment, Fingolfin actually ends up becoming the leader of the Noldor while they're gone.
So, I mean, you can see that this is just, the world is kind of collapsing. The perfect world is collapsing. There is so much favoritism from Finwë to his one son that he leaves his entire responsibility as king of his people to go be with that son. And part of that is because he loved his wife Muriel so much, and he saw Muriel Muriel gave him Feanor.
Yep.
So that's part of it, why he's drawn towards Feanor. But that is like, imagine the Fingolfin and Finarfin, your other 2 sons. Like, dad just left all responsibilities to go be with Feanor. Like, that is pretty glaring. Who's the favorite? And he's the favorite by a long shot.
Well, I found it was interesting that Feanor says, no, don't usurp my inheritance. Don't take my inheritance.
Don't make daddy mad at me.
And he gets banished, and then Fingolfin gets the inheritance of being the leader of Noldor because Feanor has to leave. So in the end, Fingolfin's the leader anyway. So because of this, Melkor realizes that his cunning has been made aware to the Valar, and he does flee. But Tulkas cannot find him. The Valar are seeing that the days are getting a little bit darker, or the trees of light aren't shining as bright. So just like in Middle Earth, when Melkor came and they didn't know, things were just getting darker and more evil. This is kind of happening in Aman. Things are getting darker, but like I said, Tulkas can't find him. So Melkor decides that he is going to go to Feanor to see if he can. He really wants these Silmarils. It's interesting, the lust of these gems that he has. And so he wants to see if he can gain Feanor's friendship. And it seems like at the beginning of the conversation, maybe it was going okay, but he says something.
So Feanor, I learned a lot from this conversation that Feanor believes he should not be under anyone's authority. He has a very high regard for himself. Incredibly high regard for himself. He doesn't want to listen to anyone. He believes, no desire to do anything other than exactly what he wants to do. A side note, when him and his sons go build this fortress, it's called Formenos, they also hoard a bunch of gems. Hoarding of gems, this is the first time we've actually seen that. Before, the last few chapters, they talk about they found gems and people wanted to give them away. They wanted it to make the world as beautiful a place as possible. So him actually hoarding gems is another sign of decay in the world. But yeah, Melkor is like, hey, those Valar, they really embarrassed you there at that Ring of Doom by sentencing you. Like, you don't think you deserve that, do you? And so Feanor does not think he deserves that. He does not like getting embarrassed. He does not believe that the Valar should be an authority over him. And so Melkor kind of plays at that.
Yeah, he plays at that, but Feanor, I think Melkor pushed a little too far,
He does.
and Feanor sees this is because of his lust for the Silmarils, and he shuts the door in the face. And the book says this: he shuts the door in the face of the most powerful being in all of Ea, and
Which is existence. Ea is
which
existence.
really shows Feanor's his strength. Even though he's not the best person, he is very confident, very strong-minded. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, so Melkor, he's trying to get Feanor to say like, hey, come join me. Let's essentially take down the Valar. He doesn't come quite up and say that. I think that's kind of the undertone that Feanor understands. So Feanor's silent, but he's thinking. He's like, man, I got a lot of stuff here. I don't really know if I want to leave. And then Melkor sees him hesitates, and Melkor he does a play. It doesn't go his way. He's like, the Silmarils would not be safe here ultimately. And it says Feanor sees in his eyes, and he knows that Melkor lusts for the Silmarils. So he no longer believes anything that Melkor has to say, and he doesn't believe Melkor's on his side. So Feanor 100% hates Melkor after this, and he slams the door in his face. And then Finwë gets scared. He's like, I cannot believe you just did that. And he goes to tell the Valar, like, we found Melkor.
Yeah, essentially, like, hey, Melkor showed his face at our door, and so he's around. Go find him. And Tolkis and Orome start searching for him, but Melkor actually leaves Valinor, and it does mention that the two trees started to shine brighter. So that's kind of how they knew he probably wasn't really even in Amon, because the trees were a little bit brighter. I do think it mentioned a little bit too that like Feanor's response made Melkor even afraid a little bit, because he was like, he couldn't even convince Feanor. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing for Melkor to not be able to have authority, to one of the Quendi to stand up to him meant he was not quite as charming as he thought he was.
Yeah. I think it knocked his confidence down a little bit. I mean, he's still super powerful. So that ends chapter 7. So that's where we are with Melkor is not in Valinor, and Feanor is banished for 12 years. Did you have anything else on chapter 7?
No, I think we closed it out right where I was thinking to. So.
Okay, so we did do chapter 8. Chapter 8 is pretty short, so we tacked that one on as well. This one is called Of the Darkening of Valinor. Also a very sad chapter because Melkor comes back. He comes back to Valinor, and he goes to the darkest region that he can find. It's called Avathar, and it's kind of underneath the mount, like at the base of the mountains.
It's in Valinor, which is so surprising. This is not Middle Earth that's just been left. This is a place in Valinor that is between the mountains and the coast in the southeast of Valinor, and most of everything's happening kind of in the north where the trees are and everything. And so the south is kind of left unguarded. The Valar thought he escaped Middle Earth, but he doubled back on them when they didn't see, and he went to this region Avathar. So Tolkis and Orome don't find him. He leaves the northern part. The trees get brighter, and so he's he's escaped.
Yeah, he's escaped, and he goes to find this creature named Ungoliant. She had been corrupted by Melkor a long time ago, but she did disown him because she wanted to be the master of her own lust, which is quite disturbing. She took on the form of a spider, and that should be ringing your bells. A spider in monstrous form. She sucked all the light that could be found and spun it into dark nets.
Real quick on that, I just thought, I wonder if Tolkien is making a comparison, because the way they describe Ungoliant, it's very interesting. Like, where did she come from? Why is she in Valinor? They don't really explain that. But how she disowned Melkor because she had her own lust and intent in her heart. She is almost like Feanor. Mm-hmm. She has some of the same characteristics of like, I am not under anyone's authority. I want to do my own thing and pursue all my own lust. And so he couldn't get Feanor. So he goes to Ungoliant. Melkor does.
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of like Ungoliant is like option number two. Also super, super scary. He goes to Ungoliant and he asks to her, he kind of wants her to help plot his revenge on the Valar. And she wasn't sure at first, but she does end up agreeing to do that. And so they decide to set forth and journey to the Trees of Light. They're able to go without being seen because as they're traveling, Ungoliant webs, she weaves a cloak of darkness around them so they couldn't be seen.
It essentially looks like it acts like a cloak of invisibility, and it's called an unlight. It's not like darkness; it's an unlight. So, invisibility was the closest thing I could see to it. And I think we can go ahead and say that Ungoliant is Shelob's mother, just in case you guys hadn't put that together. So this is Shelob the spider's mother. And they do go to those trees, and I'll let you get back to that real quick before they did, because Melkor doesn't quite have a plan yet of what he wants to do. They take this short, or this I don't know. They make a stop on the way to a very high mountain in the south, and it just shows they look down on everything. It's called Haramatir. I don't think I'm saying that one right. Sorry, but it's a high mountain in the south, not as high as Tanaquetil, but they are able to see just all of Valinor from that. And then it seems like that's where Melkor's like, now I have my plan, and that's when they like, let's go to the trees.
Yes, because Melkor realizes once again, all the elves and the Valar are all gathered together in a festival. Kind of makes me think of like a harvest festival or something. Yavanna made a time for the fruits to all be ripened at the same time. So it was kind of like when they would pick all the fruits and they would have a festival for this time. The Valar and the Eldar all come together. Everyone is gathered besides the Teleri. Feanor is actually invited as well. He's the only one of his family that came. Actually, I think Fingolfin was there as well.
I believe Feanor is commanded to come. Actually.
Yes.
He's the only one's commanded. Finwë, in protest, still doesn't go because he's like, my son's still banished, so he's still very bitter.
But doesn't Feanor and Fingolfin, they talk, and they essentially, Fingolfin forgives him. And they shake hands. And just as they are shaking hands, if you remember when the two trees, one is dimming and one is brightening up, that's kind of the how they tell time. So they said the mingling of the lights of the two trees began.
Yes, it's kind of a silver light, yeah.
So that is kind of when Melkor and Ungoliant decide to make their move, and they go to the Trees of Light. Melkor strikes each tree with his sword, with a dark spear, and then, so disgusting, Ungoliant sucks up the blood of the trees. Not sure what that looks like. It's probably not red. And the poison of death, as she's sucking out the trees, the poison of death is going into the trees, and they die. And Ungoliant, even after sucking out all the life from the Trees of Light, she was still thirsty, and so she goes and drinks up the wells of Varda as well. And as she's drinking up all the light, she's emitting a great darkness that even scared Melkor.
Yeah, she apparently becomes very, very large. And yeah, Melkor got even scared of her, but it just shows she just has this lust for things that she just goes. And so they've done this whole secret strike team where she's been hidden them with invisibility, and now they just strike at the heart of Valinor, these two trees. And real quick, I guess I meant to say earlier, when Feanor reconciled with Fingolfin, he said, I will follow you, my brother. He says that to him.
Feanor says that to Fingolfin.
Fingolfin says that to Feanor. And Feanor,
that makes more sense.
Feanor looks at him and says, I hear thee. And then it's kind of like a dun dun dun. Like, I don't know if he knew exactly. Fingolfin knew exactly what that might mean. So we'll see what comes of that. But anyway,
yeah, we'll see how much of a reconciliation that was.
Yeah, but anyway, so back to Ungoliant and Melkor.
Yeah, I wanted to read the quote of this happening so you could kind of understand how terrible the darkness was. In that hour was made a darkness that seems not lack, but a thing with being of its own. For it was indeed made by malice out of light, and it had power to pierce the eye, and to enter heart and mind, and strangle the very will. So I love how it mentions that it felt like its own being, the darkness. So Valinor, what am I saying?
Valinor was covered in darkness.
Yeah. Well, and Valmar, the main city where they all were, was a sea of darkness. The only thing that could be seen through the darkness was that tallest mountain that Manwë sits on.
Taniquetil.
So only Manwë's eyes could pierce through the night until he saw the darkness beyond. So he could see through the night, but Melkor and Ungoliant were still covered in that darkness. And so he could not actually see them. He could just see darkness kind of fleeing a little bit. So the pursuit begins. There's the dark cloud of Ungoliant really confused the riders and Tulkas and Orome, and they were all powerless to catch him. And it just says Melkor's vengeance was achieved.
Yeah, they kind of they leave it. It's a very dark chapter. Literally, the world has entered darkness. The flame from the hooves of Nahas, which is Orome's steed, it was like the first light to enter back into the world. And so I don't know what's about to happen now, but they are things have gotten very, not to be punny, but very, very dark. Like, this is just a very scary time. And Valinor has kind of been descending from just a very peaceful place. That ultimately this is the ultimate low there.
Yeah, because the trees of light are dead. So that does end chapter 8. We really like these chapters because there was just a lot of story in them, and we learned a lot more about Arda. And so
very few, some of the other the chapters were all about character dumping to try to bring, here's all the characters we're going to be talking about, and now we're getting to know the characters as opposed to being introduced to a bunch of new ones. So that has been nice, and especially our journey here through the Silmarillion.
Yeah, I think the new characters maybe were just Ungoliant, and maybe some of the wives that the Noldor elves married. So I do have a couple questions as we wrap up. I had some answers to my questions, but I wanted to see what your ones are. So did you have any specific connections? I ask this every time because I find it interesting. Did you have any specific questions, connections to the Lord of the Rings this time in these new chapters with stories we haven't heard before?
Well, obviously Shelob's mother is going to be an important connection there. And then I'm trying to think about anything else. No, I think that would be the biggest one there.
What I felt was interesting, these are just kind of connections. The highlighting of the lust of gems. It just shows the beginning of the lust for the One Ring. The elves lusted after gems. The man will as well eventually, as we learn about them. So that lust for things of beauty starts. So I think that's interesting how that connects to the One Ring. The second one I really liked was that Ungoliant uses her darkness to kill the trees of light, but then her descendant Shelob is killed with the light or the file of Galadriel. And I just love that because, it all comes back full circle.
And I almost wonder if that file,
it might have the tree
that we have here.
We should look that up.
Might have some of the same aspects of the Silmarils, where it has a light within itself. Yeah,
and it just kind of makes more sense why Shelob was so afraid of the light, because I'm sure she was very aware of that darkness. So I thought that was really...
I like that.
Thank you.
I like that.
Thank you very much. All right, the last question, I guess I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts about it, or if you guys wanted to comment below if you had any thoughts about it as well. Why do you think Melkor was so fearful of Ungoliant, although he is the most powerful being in Arda and he is the great enemy? I don't have an answer to this. I just thought it was weird.
I think he is playing around with forces he doesn't quite understand yet himself, or he's still learning about. And so when he gives her the tree of life. Like he doesn't quite know how much power is in those, and so when he sees that she can consume that power, he hasn't experienced that before. So I don't think it's scared like
Oh, I might die.
I might die, but it is like this person is this being is way more of a serious. This is more of a peer than I thought. Like it's gonna if I need to go one on one with her, it's gonna be tough. So I think it was like I don't think it's a total fear, but it was a very respectful like whoa, I need to be careful with how my relationship with her goes in the future because she has become way more powerful than I thought she was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that it's almost like he doesn't realize the power of the evil that he has created. It's almost like he's not aware of how powerful some of his beings could be. That's all I had. Did you have anything?
No, I believe that's actually all I had as well. I think one of the points I brought up that I just thought was most interesting was how the world was slowly corrupted with lust and envy and gossip and favoritism. All those themes just wove into and gave Melkor that chance to strike. It makes me think a little bit of Star Wars, how the Jedi is like, you can't feel any of these things or else things go downhill. And so it's like that's some of all these themes start happening in these chapters, and then it ends up giving a chance for Melkor to strike. So yeah, very sad.
Yeah, very dark, some very dark chapters. But that ends our podcast for today. What chapters are we going to read for next week so people can be prepared?
We are looking at doing chapters 9 and 10, so 2 chapters for episode 6.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Normally, we try to do about 17 pages, about 20. So it might be a little bit longer of an episode.
That's a little bit of a sweet spot between 45 to 60 minutes. So we shall see with the 20 pages, the next 2 chapters, how that goes.
Yeah. So thanks for listening.
A Couple of Silmarils out.